Hey everyone, this is Carmelo Barrera Cruz, and this is A Laugh and a Smile.
Hey, Mello, how's it going?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
All right. Do you want to
Wow,
introduce yourself? I know it's the first episode of A Laugh and a Smile.
yes. This-
All right. Do you want to introduce yourself?
yeah, my name is Pablo. Um, I'm an adjunct professor and so on at the University of Redlands. What else? What else would you like to know about me, Mello?
Well, I like to start. Well, I want to start the podcast. Like just asking, what's something funny that happened today?
What's something funny that happened today? Um, wow, I don't know. I think I find joy in everything.
Hmm.
So it's really I can't pinpoint a single moment. Like I haven't had one of those like laugh out loud moments yet.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't know. I think just I don't know, just being here with you. It's like it's cool. It's like we've been talking about you doing this for a while,
Hmm.
and here it is. You know,
Yeah, I
like
know, right?
that's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it's it was actually kind of weird because my day started kind of slow, and then I had class, and then we started talking about how ridiculous uh, the construct of race is. Because he finally, my professor um, Daniel Diaz, he was like, race is a social construct, and I was like, yes, we've been talking about this in my social construction of society class. It's great.
Right. So how did that come up in what context and what was your response to that?
Yeah. So the class I'm taking, it's called Chicanx Culture and Identity. And
Okay.
so we talk about, we're reading a book called The Decolonial Theory with Emma Perez.
Okay.
Um, and so we've been talking about, um, I guess, uh, the term Latina and Chicana and like Indígena. And so we're trying to, I guess, break down why those terms are so vaguely used. Like,
Okay.
like not everyone identifies as Latina, Chicana, or Indígena if they're like of Spanish or of Latino descent, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so we started talking about how race started as race essentially is a manipulation of crap. I forgot like the technical terms of it, but like
Social construct. Don't worry about it.
um, the what's call it? I guess the government or the crap. It's like the higher up the authority. They created race, like specifically Spanish conquistadors. Um, they started race because they wanted to. I mean, it was all for very selfish reasons. It's like we want your land, so we're gonna take it. And
For sure. You know,
we're gonna take your culture. Well, yeah, um,
classifying humans, right? Applying this label and then having it mean something like inferiority,
mhm,
right? So you
yeah,
create a label, you create the construct, and then you tell people, right? And this is all supported by the way you treat them,
mhm,
right? And then this becomes a psychological effect where they start to believe these things, like, oh, wait, well, this person is saying this about me. It's got to be true, right? And so the subjugation really begins there with that psychological manipulation that you are referring to,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, and and so we kind of ended the class on that because that was gonna start another conversation, which we it's good for next class.
Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting. And, as you've taken me before and obviously this semester as well.
Mhm.
And, what do I always say about identity? What's my thing?
It's up to you. It's like life is a learning lesson. That's really what I learned from you. Kind of like taking in everything, not taking it personally, which was one of the hardest things to do last semester. It was
Sure.
like how to walk the world without taking every little thing personally, because that's kind of like how we grew up. It's like I'm not sure how to explain it.
And you don't really know any better, right? So that's part of the journey and that's part of the process is recognizing that every person, every individual walking this earth is living in their own little reality that is based off their experiences and their upbringing and their socialization and their cultural knowledge, right?
Yeah.
And, so, but when we're younger, we don't necessarily understand that. And oftentimes we do take those things that come out of another person's mouth very personally because why wouldn't you, right? You're literally talking about me.
Hmm.
But at the same time, you get to a point where you recognize, oh, but that thing that you're saying about me is coming from you. And it literally has nothing to do with me.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah,
And
because whatever they're saying, it's deriving from a place that's like uh it's like certain experiences that they've gone through that have led up to that reaction.
yeah,
Because let's say it's like a disciplinary kind of action, like you're trying to teach a lesson to your kid, and it's like a verbal like disciplinary action, and so like there's like a frustration that comes, or I guess another issue that I kind of notice is uh think or acting on emotion before thinking.
Mhm.
And so you don't really think about like the after effects that a conversation like that might have later on.
Yeah. I mean, like, different people are operating based on their mental filters,
Hmm.
right? So that's something that I refer to a lot, the mental filters that you process reality through,
Hmm.
right? So, how do I make sense of these things? How do I make sense of these occurrences, these events, these objects, right? These ideas, these words, um, these visuals, right? How do I make sense of that? And without, uh, human touch, how would you make sense of any of this, right? How would you?
Human touch and like human, or I guess communication, like communication is key too.
Yeah.
Um, and like I guess we just kind of forget to, and we're not taught to either. So we're kind of left to figure it out on our own.
Yeah, and that is something strange, right? So, as you may recall, one of my rules is make the familiar strange,
Hmm.
right? And so that's kind of weird, right? That we don't really teach people to necessarily tune into their emotions and to really listen to them and to try to figure out where they stem from and what
Hmm.
they mean. Um, we're almost taught to just accept them as essential truths, right? That oh, I guess I'm just wired that way. But nobody really digs in and peels back to layers to try to investigate and do a self-reflective exercise to try to figure out, oh wait, well, you know, this must have come from somewhere. It has to have an origin, right? Everything has an origin. And so if you do that inner work, then you do get to find out, right? You do eventually get to a point where like, oh, well, this belief about that for whatever reason is either making me feel good or feel bad uh, is something that I learned, right?
Yeah.
You learn from another human being.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so once you recognize that, then you really like broaden your horizons and realize, oh, well, anything's possible.
Hmm.
That's pretty cool.
I wanted to ask, do you think that this kind of like not being aware that there needs to be a self reflection, like, do you think that's what's been causing such a rift in our society, like at least in the US, or like honestly everywhere? Everything's kind of like people aren't being human to each other.
Well, I think just conflict in general stems from what we've been talking about, right? Which, like, people getting upset or getting angry or like, uh, you know, taking things very intimately, right? On a very personal level. Um, and again, that's just part of the process. And my thing is looking at the individual, right? And so trying to figure out why this person and encouraging them to figure out, well, why are you so angry? Why are you upset? Why are you uh, doing the things that are hurting others, right? Why are you engaging in these types of activities that are not necessarily conducive to living the peaceful life that we all claim to want, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's kind of interesting. And so that's when you, after speaking with people, right? Because everybody's always very quick to assume, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's always so quick to assume and to think that they know why somebody does something, right? But if you really, again, take that self-reflective stance, you get to realize, oh shit, like all of this is happening through me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm without speaking to somebody, without really trying to have a conversation with them. How can you assume, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think that that's the first step in trying to understand conflict between uh, different people, different groups. Is just having that conversation and opening it up. You know, um,
What? Why do you think it's so hard to have such an open conversation? Because like I've tried to open conversations, but it's kind of hard because the other person always has somewhere to be. Like everyone's just always on a quick schedule. Like there's always somewhere to go.
yeah, I don't know, and I think that is a product of the way we have organized life in our society, right? Everything is quick and fast paced, and everybody always feels like there's something to do. And, so even while you're doing something, you're always thinking about the next thing.
Hmm.
And so when that happens, how much time do you really have to have these types of self reflective conversations that we've been talking about, right? So if you're constantly focusing on the next task and not necessarily focusing on the task at hand right now, because right now you and I are having this beautiful conversation, and it's like I'm right here, Mello,
Hmm.
and I can tell that you are too.
Yeah.
Is that correct? And that's so cool. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Um, I have a couple more classes to teach today, but but right now I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about you. I'm
Hmm.
thinking about this event right now. I'm thinking about how beautiful it is that this had actualized. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's amazing. You
It,
know?
yeah. It all. I was talking to my friend Tom about this, and he was like, "I can't believe you got like a project started." Oh crap.
Hey Mel, I think there was
Yeah.
something going on with your connection.
Yeah.
Can
It was a university. Yeah.
you repeat that? I missed that. There was something going on with your connection.
Yeah.
So you were talking with your friend Tom,
Hmm.
and what happened?
And he was like, "I can't believe you got your project off the ground within like
Yeah.
a few weeks." And I was just like, "I can't either."
Okay, so let's talk about that, right?
Hmm.
Because I think this is what happens when people are upset or angry or depressed, right? Because something tells me that this person isn't really doing what they want to be doing, because if you're really living that life, right? And you have that lifestyle and you're focusing on your goals and you're focusing on your purpose and you're focusing on your desires, right? Why would you emanate any type of negativity? Like, why would you have time to like hate on another person or to focus on like different.
Yeah. It wasn't a diss though. It was like oh, I can't believe you got your project off the
Not at
ground.
all. That's not what I'm saying. So what I'm
Okay.
saying is like, it's a beautiful thing
Yeah.
that you have gotten to this point
Gotcha.
where you have realized the power within you to make these things happen for yourself, right?
Yeah.
And it's not like, so a lot of people think that this is like magic, like, oh, you wish it and then it appears.
Mhm.
No,
There's
right?
so many logistics to it.
Absolutely. It's a process,
Mhm.
right? But during that process and throughout that process, what do? You maintain the focus, right? You maintain the joy, you maintain the hope, you maintain uh, all these positive feelings of knowing that this thing is going to happen.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, why would you be doing it? Exactly,
Exactly.
right?
Mhm.
So, and you've gotten that experience now, and I think that's wonderful because now you get to share that with other people. Like, and let me ask you this: so throughout this process of you making this thing come to life, right? Um, like, what was fueling you? What was your motivation?
Um, Honestly, it was like I started school. I could finally like stabilize myself because I was moving around a lot. Like when we got off campus in March, and so I was finally able to have my own space, and I've decorated it all. And then I don't know. As I was taking my classes, um, I am volunteering for this program called Reach, where we go and volunteer either tutoring or teaching workshops at juvenile hall. But now that everything's online, uh, it was kind of strange uh, to teach a class. Um, and so, like, I don't get to say everything I need to say or like to connect with the students the way I would want to in person. And so I kind of thought that having conversations with people who are striving for great things, like I believe that you are one of the best people I know because of how open your heart is, and like I love that, and I want to have more conversations like that.
I think you're perfect, but you already know that.
Thank you.
I know you're perfect.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's,
But yeah, and I just I got the name A Laugh and a Smile because I mean, like even last semester when I was really depressed, I would always find a way to laugh or to smile, um, because it's my nature. Yeah, and so like I I guess I thought I'd just share with people because some kindness is what the world needs right now.
yes, 100%, 100%. And look at this result, this outcome, this manifestation of all of those things that you just mentioned, right? This has created a platform for you to express that joy and that gratefulness, right?
Hmm.
But it also giving you the opportunity to connect with people.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And
yeah,
it's going to bring a smile and joy and hope to them because you're somebody who has now gone through that process, right? You
hmm,
have been in that dark place. I was in that dark place once.
hmm.
And you hear people, right, talk about the light at the end of the tunnel, right? And
And
when
you're like, it's bullshit.
yeah, when you're in that very dark place, like
Hmm.
you dismiss them. You're like, No way. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But then you keep going, right? Because they're there. Because those people who support you and love you unconditionally, they're always there. And you're like, dude, what's your problem?
Hmm. Yeah.
So eventually you start to kind of give in, okay? And they give you these little hints and advices, right? Oh,
Hmm.
maybe you should do this. Maybe you should do that. Maybe you should focus on the things that you are grateful for. Maybe you should focus on the things that you do like to do. Maybe you should, discard people that don't make you feel good about yourself.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. My process was a little different because I I kind of began my journey, I guess, to where I am today. My freshman year, I remember I was in even a doctor place. I think February of 2019, and so I reached out to get help at Kaiser, and so I started taking medication, and it's a lot of ups and downs. It's like it's taken about a year for me to really stabilize my brain with Zoloft and Wellbutrin, to really lift myself up and be able to take care of myself.
Sure. Yeah. And that's great, right? That you have been able to seek that help and to recognize that, because oftentimes when you're in that place, you don't want anything, right? You feel like you don't deserve to be happy.
Hmm.
And it's like, but wait a minute, why wouldn't I deserve that? Like, I'm here. I should make the best out of my life. It's my life, right?
Hmm.
And so it's great that you came to that realization, sought out that help, and then here you are,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
And
It
that's
was yeah. I found Johnston, which was really great. I transferred into Johnston about a couple months ago, but I started the process in October, and
okay.
so I got a lot of support from Johnston while trying to start this project. Um, and so that was a really great support system. Even if I am new, it's like, come here, we'll welcome you, like we'll help you out.
Yeah. Johnson is a beautiful, beautiful community. Um, Obviously, I've had the opportunity to interact with many different students and people from the Johnson program. Why don't you explain to your viewers what Johnson is?
I've Okay, the way I explain it, it's a program. I mean, it's also a community on campus, but it is also an academic program where you can choose an emphasis or, uh, I guess I say create your own major.
Yes,
Um,
it is. That's how I explain it.
yeah, yeah, and so yeah, that's how I explain it. It's a program where you can make your own major. You make a lot of great connections. Um, I mean, everyone kind of has the same mission to help the world in one way or another,
Yeah.
which is a really great energy to have. Um, yeah. Do you have anything to add about the Johnson
I mean,
study?
I just think that Johnson really epitomizes this idea of social constructionism, because it's like you said, you literally get to create your major, and obviously people have to sign off on it, but like, dude, I am a major in, like, I don't know, like, peace and freedom studies.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, whoa, like, I just, food and design. I don't know. Like,
Hmm. Yeah, there could definitely be a major like that.
yeah,
I mean, mine is channeling experiences into forms of expression, um, which has
great.
questions all on its own.
That's great. That's really cool. That's really cool. And so I think that Johnson is beautiful because So essentially, they grant you that. They grant you that authority. Okay, like I can actually be my own institution.
Hmm.
So they're like,
Yeah, that was really strange for me because I was like, wait, how do I choose what classes I want? Like, how do I choose? I have all these options that I want to learn. And like, I guess when you write your sophomore contract, they want you to really focus in on what your goal by the end of the 4 years is. And so it was kind of hard for me to get a focus on what I wanted my emphasis to be, because there's so much I want to learn. Um, but Johnson is a really great resource too. Just like, I don't know, they provide a lot of different perspectives that are not usually given at the University of Redlands.
yeah, I mean, well, they're just inclusive, right?
Hmm.
And they are very much aware of all these different perspectives,
Hmm.
and they really emphasize, uh, you know, human agency, right?
Hmm.
Uh, there's this unwavering support and belief, right?
Hmm.
And I would even go as far as to call it a knowing that you really can do anything you want to do in this life.
Hmm.
Like, what's something that I always share with y'all, right? Uh, will and power, right?
Yeah.
Will and power. So you have a desire to do something, you create a plan, you execute that plan, you reach out to the people that you know you can reach out, the people that you feel comfortable reaching out to, because those are the people that are going to support you unconditionally.
Hmm.
And you know that I'm one of those people, and that you and all of my students can count on me to support them in any way I can, and I think that that's really something that I appreciate about the University of Redlands, is that it does have faculty that is not afraid to show their humanity, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, because I think that's wonderful. I think that when you really emphasize our humanity, that's when you can really start to make real connections with people.
Yeah. I hear this phrase a lot of, I don't know how to make friends. Like, it's just something that I come across quite often. And it's like, it is hard to start a friendship, um, because you need to have like that connection of, well, I mean, I guess friendships they're all different. They all start differently. But eventually you get to that point where it's like, you can count on that person, which is like what you were talking about, how like you have a support system that you build. And like
Yeah.
they're all different too.
Oh
And
yeah.
I realized that uh this these these past few months, it's like the people who stick by you are gonna be your people. And like I think COVID kind of showed that, because we the people at school that we call our friends, it all kind of disappeared because we're not actually in person to interact with one another. And so it's been really funny to kind of, I don't know, watch all the school construction of like, I don't know how to word it, like being in a classroom to learn and like having to be there. It's like, you don't have to if you don't want to, because it's an online class. So it's like the same with people. It's like, if you don't want to talk to this person, then you don't have to talk to this person.
Yeah, exactly. And like, and you've heard me say this a lot, right? Something that I always share with people is that, you know, your only task in this life is to just be yourself. And the people who belong in your life will always be there, will always appear, right? Your only responsibility is to just be who you are. Like, you know, to not necessarily feel compelled to be somebody you're not, right?
Mhm.
Because then otherwise you would find yourself in some trouble, right? Because now you've essentially tasked yourself, you've burdened yourself with this, you know, like responsibility to uphold a certain image of yourself that you know is not necessarily true,
Right.
right? So if you're just yourself and you're real with people, then the ones who belong in your life will stay, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so like, that's why you shouldn't necessarily worry too much about people coming and going, because the constant is you, right?
Hmm. Yeah. That's another thing for your class. The constant is you. I wanted to ask, so what made you interested in sociology?
um, so when I was an undergrad at UC Riverside, which is just down the street by us, right?
Mhm.
Um, or right down the freeway. Um,
Same thing, right?
yes, whatever, a road, social constructs. Uh, I started off as a psychology major. So I bounced around a lot. I did 5 years for my undergrad,
Yeah.
uh, and I bounced around a lot. I declared psychology as an incoming freshman,
Hmm.
and and then after that, um, I actually failed my my introduction to psychology course, and I was like, oh, well, that was weird. You know, I don't know. Okay, and to be honest, I didn't find it that interesting after actually taking a class. So I was like, okay, that's fine. After that, I did philosophy, which I loved. Love philosophy. Really spoke to me. But then you know, and when you're younger, you do tend to listen to like all these external sources who, you know, they at the time you think they know better than you,
Hmm.
but in reality, like, well, it was just their opinion. Nevertheless, I followed some advice because um, I was told that I wouldn't be able to find a job with a philosophy major. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll make it a minor, take some classes, but it's not going to be my major,
Hmm.
right? And then I fell into linguistics, which was really freaking cool. I loved it.
What is linguistics?
So it's just the study of language. Like,
Like all languages?
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. So, yeah, like the origin of language, the different meanings and different cultures and stuff like that. And that kind of spoke to me. And that's when, like, I guess that was the first time that I was introduced to this notion of social construction. Oh, like language is a social construct, right? Like people just take it for granted and assume that that it's just kind of there and a fact of life, right? But literally, people invent languages, right? Right, like in the movie Avatar,
Yeah. Yeah.
like they actually hired
Oh,
like,
the one with the blue ones?
yeah, didn't they hire like various linguistics from around the country to like actually make that a language or something like that?
I need to rewatch that because I was like 9 when it came out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I do need to rewatch it.
yeah, check it out. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. But they made their own language.
Yes, and so that's when I realized, oh shit, like language is an invention, right? Um, you know, sounds or written symbols that
Hmm.
people assign meaning to. And
Hieroglyphs.
yeah. And,
Mhm.
and so they record the meanings of them and voila, right?
Right.
But if you really think about it, like what's really happening here? I mean, yes, communication, yes, language, yes, meaning. But if you remove all of that, then what you really have is just sound, right? It's just sound. This is why if you listen to somebody speaking a language that you're not familiar with, it might just sound like like noise, like gibberish, right?
Mhm.
It wouldn't have any meaning to you necessarily. But
Right.
to the people who are fluent in it and speak it and can communicate in it, then then it actually it works, right? It has meaning.
Right.
Anyways, where was I going with this? Oh yeah, linguistics. And then I finally took a sociology class. It was a sociology of sports class with Scott Brooks. Shout out to Dr. Brooks over at, I believe he's at Arizona State now. And man, like that was a really cool class. One, because first of all, like he was the type of professor who was you could just tell that he was just himself. Like he would play music at the beginning of his class. It was like a party. Like going to his lectures was literally like a party. He was so cool and different, from anything that I had experienced up until that point in a college class. They're like, oh man, like it's so. So I started going to his office hours a lot because, well, first of all, like the stuff that he covered in his class was really interesting to me. Because I'm a sports fan, right? I like sports. And then after he took on this mentor role for me, he encouraged me to pursue graduate school because at the time I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just
Mhm.
knew, I went to college because there was this expectation, right? I had the expectation for myself. My family had the expectation for me, but I didn't really know like what I wanted to do. I just knew that I had to go to college, and I got in, and I
Right.
would work, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So, so he said, "Hey, look, like." You have a passion for sports. You also like learning and you like reading and you like thinking and you like theorizing. So why don't you go get a master's degree in sociology and I'll guide you all the way up until the PhD program. We'll get you into a PhD program.
What's
And
that?
what's that?
What's that?
The
What's
PhD
the part?
program?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, like a doctor of philosophy, right, in sociology.
Gotcha.
And so he did. So he mentored me the whole way, and he's somebody that I hold very near and dear to my heart, and that I'm appreciative uh, for. You know,
Yeah.
uh,
So is that why our classes always start like a party?
well, he just made it fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like at that point, I realized, oh man, like it doesn't have to be like like just
Awkward silence when you walk into the class, and like you all kind of wait for the teacher.
yeah, and like he really took advantage of what is called academic freedom, right? So in higher education, there's this thing called academic freedom, which basically allows instructors to to be themselves, right? And to
Hmm.
teach what they're passionate about, and to research the various different things that they're interested in. And so academic freedom is something that he also instilled in me. It's like, hey, listen, you don't need to pretend to be anybody, but you just have to be you, and because being you is is perfect. You know what I mean? Like, why would you want to live a lie. You know what I mean? Why would you want to put up a front? Like, that's not fun, right? Going to work and then pretending to be somebody for, however long you're there. Like, that's kind of weird. So just be yourself. And that's something that he instilled in me, and that I really took that advice to heart, and that I embody, every
Yeah.
day, you know? And
Yeah.
like, I can honestly say that the way I am around all of you, is the way I am in my personal life, around my family, around my friends. Like, there's no real like distinction, there's no degree of like uh, a role playing, nothing like that. I'm
Did
just
you? Yeah. Did you find it hard to execute that? Like, I'm not sure how close you are to your family, but like, or like, is it hard to be yourself around your family?
no,
No.
no. As with every group, um, obviously there are going to be some topics that you discuss with some people, but and reserve for others,
Hmm.
right? But in terms of like the core of the personality, like, I can honestly say I'm always me. Like, you know what I mean? Uh,
Yeah. The
yeah.
reason, yeah, the
Go
reason
ahead.
I ask is because my family dynamic is very different.
Uh-huh.
Uh, like I think from everyone. I grew up with 5 sisters, and I have a little brother. Um,
Wow, I didn't know that.
yeah, I
Big
I'm
family.
second. Yeah, yeah. So there's Beta, she's the oldest, and then there's me, and then there's Dani, who's a senior in high school, and then Nati, she's a freshman in high school, and then Esteban is in middle school.
Uh-huh.
He's in 7th grade. I'm saying grades because I don't really clearly remember their ages. It's a lot to keep track of.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, and then there's 2 babies. One is 4, Mimi, and then Lulu is 7, I believe.
Wow, a lot of variety,
Hmm.
right? In
Yeah,
terms of the ages.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's very strange to be myself around my family because I don't know, everyone's kind of at a different level, and we all have different relationships with one another.
Yeah.
Like, I talk to my older sister most, um, and I don't really talk to like my little brother or my sister who's a freshman in high school. Nati. Like, we don't really talk much, but like, I guess I noticed that or realized that they are my siblings. Like, even if I don't talk to them, I will get to know them eventually. Like, I was always scared that the age difference was gonna drift us apart. But like, I kind of realized that we are all living our own lives, like, especially me. I'm like,
Yes.
if I want to keep connection with them, I have to reach out. Um, I guess, like, at least in the future, because
Yeah.
they're going to be living their own lives too.
Yeah. So do you feel connected to them though? Like, do you feel, I mean, the way you introduced them to me and to your audience right now, it was very endearing. Like, I
Mm.
felt that very uh like tender note in your voice as you were talking about them. So it's very clear that you obviously care for them and love them, right?
Mhm.
Uh, but the relationship that you have with each of them, um, that's something that I think is organic. You know what I mean? Like, and it's not necessarily something that you should feel um, negative about in any way, shape, or form. I think that it just kind of is what it is at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And, as you just acknowledged, it's 100% possible that these relationships will evolve and change and shift over time, right? Who's to say? I've met a lot of people who they weren't very close to particular certain family members when they were younger.
Mm-hmm.
And then in older age, they're like, oh yeah, like my best friend. And it's,
Yeah.
but that's the life course, right? That's the journey, is understanding that, as you acknowledged and mentioned, that each and every one of us is an individual, right? And I think that that's something that in the family unit, oftentimes just goes over people's heads, right? And
Yeah.
that people try to, like, I'm not going to say control, but they assume that these kids don't have a mind of their own and that they're not processing like things in their own way, and that they
Mm-hmm.
don't have experiences. Like when they go to school, do you think that they're just like what, like robot? Like, I don't understand. You don't think that things are happening there that are also affecting them and influencing them, like, and you don't think that they are able to think and rationalize and interpret things on their own? Like, this is a being just like you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really cool that you can acknowledge that.
That's very interesting. Because crap, I forgot what you were saying. I knew it was about family, but I was gonna talk about, I guess no one really talks about how the relationship of a parent and a child, like when they go off to school, like some families do talk about what's like, oh, tell me about your school day. But then there's other families that are more, they, the child is, the child is meant to be more independent. Um, and so there's no communication involved. So I've never thought about that, I guess, how just the parent and the child are living completely different lives because they're seeing the world through their own perspective, but they
Yeah,
just don't acknowledge that.
absolutely. And I think that when it comes to like those types of family dynamics and parental styles, um, oftentimes, it could be cultural. Uh, it could be based on maybe religious ideologies. It could be based on different familial like traditions, right? It could be based on, you know, like patriarchal ideas, right? Um, and that depends, right? It depends on the situation. It depends on the individuals involved. It depends on the family itself, the family unit. Um, what I always say is that, whether or not you are part of a family system or family unit that that you're not necessarily um, like happy in as a child, that too is like a learning lesson, isn't it? Because now you get to enact that in the future with your own kids if you want kids, right? And
Right.
like you get to provide the type of environment that you wish you would have had, right? Um, Without necessarily like putting blame on your own family, because they were just doing the best they could, right? Like,
Right.
they were just following the norm and what was established uh, for them, right? And oftentimes people follow these norms without realizing that they can choose otherwise, right?
Right.
And so that's not necessarily their fault. But now you have an opportunity to create the type of life and the type of organizing for your family, right? That you would want. And I think that's really great. So everything, uh, whether you perceive it as negative or as positive, is a learning experience, right? Um, it's not necessarily something to feel shame or guilt or resentment, even though these emotions can creep in, especially when you're younger and you don't know any better, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
But the more removed you are from those experiences, the more you kind of get to realize, okay, so this happened. Uh, because it happened, it must have happened for a reason. What was that reason? And if it's just me who is experiencing my life, then there's something to take away from it, right? And so now you get to take away the lesson and apply it, right? Learn and apply, right?
Do you think we just forget to apply?
Um, yeah, it's tough, right? So like you can acknowledge that you've learned something, but until you enact it, what have you really learned?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
not until you actually do the thing that you claim to have learned, have you actually learned.
Yeah. 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 I feel that. Just because, like the past few months, uh, I guess I was criticized a lot by my time management, um, by like friends or like uh, people, and so just like it was very refreshing to realize that I don't need to have that if I don't want to. um, I wanted to ask where do you think the anger, the frustration, the feeling of ashamedness from, I don't know, being afraid of being wrong, I guess, comes from?
What do you mean, like being afraid of being wrong?
Like how we were talking about, I guess, child development or people development.
Yeah.
um, like you were talking about how um, children just feel things without knowing why.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, do you have an explanation?
So you're asking me what I think or what my theory is for why people experience uh, negative like feelings or emotions.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's expectations. I think that the expectations that are instilled in us when we are younger, right? Because nobody chooses the circumstances that they're born into, right? You don't choose your
Mm-hmm.
family. You don't choose, your socioeconomic status, right? You don't choose the labels that are initially placed on you, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so oftentimes, when you're younger and you don't necessarily know any better, um, all these different limiting beliefs that are instilled in you, um, they can cause all of these different negative emotions, right?
Yeah.
Uh, all these different limitations, right? Don't do this, don't do that, right? And for whatever reason, whether it's based on like religious ideologies or personal familial traditions or whatever it may be. um, I think oftentimes because we don't have that ability, or at least we don't think we have that ability at the time, right, to express ourselves, right? Here we are talking about expression, right? Now that's cool. It's your major.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that from just feeling that, right, feeling that pressure, feeling those criticisms, right, those judgments. At the time, that shit feels real, you
Mm-hmm.
know, because again, there's this expectation to meet this thing that was set out for you from somebody who's literally not you. And so that can create all kinds of inner turmoil, right?
Right.
That can create all kinds of inner turmoil because, on the one hand, you can acknowledge that this thing that you are being asked to be or do is not making you happy. On the other hand, you also don't want to disappoint the people or institutions that are setting forth these things for you. And so you're at a crossroads right now. And being in this crossroad, being pulled in these two directions, should I just be myself, but know that I'm gonna be upsetting this other group? Or should I go ahead and follow this group, knowing that that's not really how I want to live my life? Right. And I think that when you stay in this place of, like, you know, indecisiveness and pondering all the different possible outcomes and all the different possible um, effects of your actions and wondering how it might affect people, I think that's where all those different feelings that don't necessarily make us feel good come in, right?
Right.
But once you commit to yourself and once you recognize that this is your life, right? That this reality is your reality and what you make of it, and really like hone in into that that thing that's gonna make you feel at peace with yourself, right? Because when you are at this type of crossroads, right, and you have a decision to make, right, oftentimes you don't necessarily prioritize yourself because the way we have been taught, right, throughout our lives, through our institutions, is that if we prioritize ourselves, we are what? We're being what?
Selfish.
Yes, exactly, right?
Yeah. And it
But
has such a negative connotation that
it
you're like,
does.
no, I can't be.
It does, right? But what people don't understand is that in honoring yourself, right, in making yourself a priority and really looking out for yourself and your likes and your interests and your dreams and aspirations and desires to be who you want to be and identify how you want to identify, right? That it's in that moment that you also kind of realize, okay, I really am in charge of my life, right? In terms of, well, what can I control, right?
Yeah.
What are the only things that we can control?
Ourselves.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Behavior,
Emotion.
thoughts, right?
Thoughts.
With enough
Mm-hmm.
practice, and also your emotions with enough practice, right?
Yeah.
And once you realize that, like, okay, so the only things that I can control are my behavior, how I treat others, my thoughts, because nobody else is in my body, right? It's just
Mm-hmm.
me, right? And
Yeah.
so, and then you also get to realize, well, when negative thoughts arise, like, is that really me? And then you can kind of dismiss them. No, well, it was probably something that I learned from somebody who had these thoughts or who had these limiting beliefs, right?
Right.
And so you're able to see the thought, but you can also dismiss it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so that's when you can also, from there, with enough practice and self-awareness, control your emotions in any type of situation, because now you understand, okay, if it's not coming from me, I don't own it, right? If I didn't say it, if I didn't think it, if I didn't do it, then it has nothing to do with me. And that person owns everything that's coming out of their body, everything that's emanating from them, they own and has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
And so, like, when you realize that, it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to be me. And everybody else has to recognize that what I do or who I am is not necessarily about them. I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I'm just me.
Yeah. It's so hard to do that. I find it really difficult for me to be self-aware enough to get out of like a rut, I guess. Um, Even though I know that it's there, but I never know how to dive deeper into figuring out why I'm in a rut. Like, say I'm like drawing and like I lose energy halfway through, and it's like I don't want to do this. Like, why am I doing this? Like, no one's gonna look at it. And it's like, no, I'm doing this for me. Um, and it's like what I want to do afterwards that kind of like starts me going again, I guess. It's kind of like, oh, I do want to finish this. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, the ruts are interesting, right? Uh, we all get tired, right? We all get tired. And so that's important. And what you mentioned is so cool because there's a difference between getting tired and allowing yourself to rest and then losing motivation.
Mm-hmm.
So what you just said is really cool because it sounds to me, right? Because I always speak for yourself. I'm the one interpreting Mello's words right now. But it sounds to me more like you haven't lost motivation. You haven't lost your desire or passion for art. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's something that is that brings you a lot of joy. So I wouldn't necessarily classify that as you know being uninterested. Sometimes you just get tired, and that's okay. You can take a rest.
Mm.
You know, but the fact that you also mentioned that after you have this internal dialogue, you do go back to finishing the project, that speaks volumes about your passion and desire to express yourself and to make these wonderful things happen for yourself that do make you happy, like this wonderful podcast, you know?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I think it's okay to get tired, you know,
Right.
and to take rest and to maybe do things that are different to our regular routines, you know, and and that's okay. Sometimes that's great because in doing those new things, you might also discover another passion that you never knew you had,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. It's happened so much over the past like year or so. Because I really started branching out with my classes last October, and I took this digital imaging class, and like I wasn't getting the hang of Photoshop, and like I did not learn the conventional way, which is like through textbook. I just kind of like I took certain lessons from either YouTube or like friends who do know Photoshop, and like I just kind of self-taught myself how to learn Photoshop because that's mainly my art form now. It's digital,
Yeah.
whether it's photography or like digital painting. Like I found like a very strange love for it that I never thought I would have had.
Yeah. I mean, don't knock it until you try it,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
If you have a strong desire to try something, go for it. You know, there's a reason why you have this urge. There's a reason why you have this calling, right?
Yeah.
So give yourself that opportunity. Give yourself that gift, right? Of finding out if this thing is for you or not.
Right. And it's okay to try something out, realize it's not for you.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I I took a dance class earlier this year at the university. It
Oh
was,
yeah.
yeah,
Cool.
it was quite an experience. Like I have no control over my body. I have no idea how to like let loose and like dance. But like I was like, I'm just gonna go for it.
Well, I think you do, and I think that how you were expressing yourself is how you dance. There's no right way to dance, right? Just like there's no right way to do art.
Right.
So I think that's great. How did that experience make you feel? Did it bring fulfillment? Was it exciting?
um I yeah, I I did not argue with the teacher. I disagreed with her on her teaching style because she had a very ballet routine, and the class is called modern dance.
Okay.
Um, and so I mean, like, yes, it does strive from ballet, but like, we originally the class thought that it was gonna be like hip hop, like like I don't know, like
Kind of like freestyle.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
But it was very structured,
So
and
it's
she
very
made it.
rigid.
Yeah. And like I do understand that it was the basics, but also we were learning an older way of dance that like it is relevant, but it's not as relevant to us as a younger generation.
Uh-huh.
And so I kind of like suggested her try a different approach. The approach being like um she wanted us to take tests on like the specific types of uh positions, like I don't even remember any of them, but like that's how like that's not how I learn. I don't learn out of a textbook. It's I have to be doing something and practice it over and over. And she was expecting us to know everything um from the textbook. And
Oh,
so it's like that's
yeah.
not how I'm learning.
Right, right, right. Well, um, well, that gives you an opportunity to take another dance class with perhaps another person who will have a different orientation, right, towards dance and I don't know. So now
But it was
everything
a learning experience, yeah.
everything's a learning lesson, right? Everything's an experience. So now you know that this doesn't necessarily sit well with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's good, right? That's not a bad thing. That's good.
Oh
You
yeah. Yeah.
you know.
So I know we said 2 to 3. I mean, like, I'm good to just keep talking. I'm not sure if you do you have anywhere to go?
So I have a class at 4, so I can hang around for a little bit longer. I did want to get some food in before that class.
Gotcha,
So
gotcha.
if
All
you
right.
have any like final questions or anything,
Um,
I'm happy to talk about it.
so um, let's see. I'm trying to come up with like a good final question. um,
It doesn't even have to be a question. It could just be a statement, a comment.
It was really good talking to you. I really appreciate, and I'm honored that you joined me for my first episode of A Laugh and a Smile. um, yeah, thank you so much. I really enjoyed having this conversation. Um, yeah,
Mello, it was a wonderful experience being here. This is my first podcast ever. So, isn't that cool?
same
Like,
here. I know we're in the
yeah,
same boat.
amazing. Amazing. So, yeah, thanks so much for having me be your first guest. Like when you asked me, I was like really like deeply honored and just so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I know that this is gonna be great, because I know what this means to you and I know where this stems from for you. And I know your intentions with making this happen. And I'm confident that everything's gonna work out for you, you know.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
And I'm here for you, and you know that, you know.
I do. Yeah.
All right,
All right. Thank you. All right.
I'm gonna sign off, and I'll see you in class tomorrow. Yeah.
See you in class tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.
And that concludes the end of the first episode of A Laugh and a Smile. Thank you, everyone.